Alright guys, so I'm trying to record this again because I was doing the tier list and I was really fumbling a lot of things. Like I was saying like a lot of really dumb stuff. Like I called a Chen Gong a buster farmer. Like I was trying to do some bits and then I actually just messed them up and I blundered them. So I'm like, you know what, let me just throw that recording out. That'll just be a blooper. Let me just chuck that and let's just go ahead and just do another take. Let's just do one other take and just start it all over again. But yeah, if you guys don't know what this is, basically, since it's the end/beginning of the year, I am doing all of these tier lists to kind of see where these servants stack right now in 2022. And then at the end of 2023, after we've gotten a lot of like servant buffs and new servant releases, I want to go back over some of these classes and see how the tier list change. And I want to do this at the end/beginning of every year and just kind of see how everything evolves and how people shuffle around and see like, oh dang, Geronimo's down here in Dome, but now he's in like tier 0. He became like dummy insane. Like I'm really looking forward to being able to do this as the years go on. So yeah, if you guys enjoy daily FGO content, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for that. I also stream every weekday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to see me play FGO or other games live, make sure you come out over there. But yeah, without that being, without further ado, let's go ahead and start getting into this. See, I'm still like fumbling over stuff. First and foremost, though, we're actually just going to go ahead and just remove all of the support guys because the supports for like the caster class, like it's kind of what it's known for almost in a way. Like when you think of your support type servants, you think of your casters, right? And that's because it's kind of what the class is now like notorious for. And they kind of just fundamentally shape how you play the game. They're like so good in their ability to make other servants better that I think they just need to be in like a tier of their own because they don't really do the same thing that these other guys are actually doing, right? They're just like fundamentally insane in how they like shape how you play the game. I mean, when Scotty first came out, it was like, dude, we can loop our NPs with quick servants. That's insane. And like 3-turn farming like kind of became an actual thing as kind of we know it now today. And then, you know, Castoria just did that with art servants. But even back to when Merlin came out, it was like, dude, we can just one-shot everything in the game. That's insane. Waver was like, if you've got double Waver, you can just NP immediately. It was insane. You ran 2 of them. And then even though people feel like maybe Tamamo's falling off, she's still really good. Like she's actually still a viable option to run in art setups, like with, say, a Castoria Tamamo setup, because she gives everything that like Castoria is not giving. Castoria has a lot of self-defensive buffs, right? Like where she buffs the party, but if a boss removes all of your buffs, you're left wide open. Well, Tamamo still offers you some defense in being able to yeet the enemy's charge. It's something that affects them, and it's not something the boss will, you know, remove from you when they remove all of your buffs, right? So like she has that. She gives you NP damage, which is the one thing Castoria doesn't give you, right? So that's very strong. She reduces your skill cooldown. She heals you on her NP, which again, one thing Castoria doesn't actually do. And it just makes Tamamo very, very strong, right? Makes her a very strong servant. Well, I guess she also heals on her 3rd skill as well with the Fox's Wedding. So yeah, she's offering like a lot of things that Castoria is not doing, and I feel like she still lives up to being a very strong support. Like I think she's the only one I really have to make the case for to be up here, but she's still very strong. I mean, case in point, when everybody's getting the free 5-star tickets, it's like everybody should go for Waver and then everyone else goes for Tamamo, right? Even if they know they're never going to use Tamamo, they still grab her because they know how good she is and they know that she's still worth having in their box. So yeah, I think she's very, very strong. Definitely deserves to be up here. Now let's talk about all the other schmucks down here. All right, so starting off with Helena, I think Helena is basically like the broke boy version of like these guys up here because she doesn't have like a supporting NP, but she's still able to give like the Omni card buff. She can like gen stars per turn. She's got the battery. Like she's just kind of doing what they're doing, but on a much smaller scale. In the future, she'll get an NP damage buff. So even though she doesn't have a supporting NP, she can actually kind of do some damage unironically. And so that kind of helps her be like the support that can take out some of the goons and the like, you know, kind of like Ruler Scotty or what's her name? Koyenskaya, where you can use them even in boss fights. You can still utilize their NP to like kill the goons that are around the main boss and let your main DPS just cook up the actual boss themselves. So it kind of gives her a nice little niche. And I think Helena in like 1.5 is one of those servants that you should be using. Actually, tier 1 is here. Tier 1 is not supposed to be here. That is not one that is normally there. So there you go. There's 1.5. I was like, why is there an extra tier? But yeah, she's in tier 1.5. Not quite broken, but I think she is still definitely very, very strong. And if you don't have another one of these guys, you should consider taking her out for a spin because you'd probably be surprised at how good she is. Edison. Edison is going in tier 3. Now, I know a lot of people that like the Edison memes are probably going to be very surprised. Edison is one of those servants, and you're going to hear me describe him in a way that I've described a lot of other servants, that I think he's about one buff off from being really, really good. He has a niche in being the support type servant that really specializes in overcharge, and I feel like, and I'm talking about on JP, I know he got a buff recently over there, and I'm talking if they give him one more, that guy could explode and be really, really strong. So obviously we're a bit off from getting the buff that they gave him over on JP, but I think once they give him one more, and as long as it's just decent enough, this guy is going to absolutely cook, and he's going to be kind of like Helena in that he's going to be like the broke boy option for, you know, one of your supports or whatnot. So while he is kind of down here right now, he's kind of like more of a niche servant, and in fact, I'll grab some of the other guys like Medea and Irisu because I feel like my assessment of him applies to them as well, where they're all like fulfilling this niche that can be really funny to use or just kind of different. If you're tired of using like double Castoria or double Scotty or stuff like that, you can bring them and still get some success and kind of get a different style of gameplay going, but they still need something else to either like maybe offer something unique. Like, I know that they're like the best healers in the game and that's unique enough, but like something else added to that, right? Like whether it be like being able to give fat globs of NP, being an insane crit support, or being an insane NP gain person that gives or like they give everybody just insane arts buffs or quick buffs, just something along those lines, like something like that added to what they're doing. Or in Edison's case, just really going into like the overcharge thing and being able to be the best guy in the game. Like being able to be like demonic Bodhisattva every single turn for the party or something. Like if he's able to do stuff like that, I think he definitely has a spot as like one of the meme team servants that could be really cool to use. But until he gets something like that, they're kind of staying in the tier 3 where they have a niche, right? Where they're not bad, but they just have a niche that really doesn't come up very often, or they just don't really see a whole lot of play. But you could still kind of use them and they'll at least do something. Unlike Geronimo, I don't know what they're doing with him. I feel like the easiest thing to do is just go to each of his skills and be like, okay, the quick card gives him the quick mana burst for a turn and then drops like 50 stars. The arts mana burst gives him, well, the arts mana burst plus 50% battery for, well, I guess for one turn because it's a battery. And then the buster buff just gives him 100% crit damage for one turn. And you just let him be like an insane burst damage servant or something. I don't know why they refuse to buff Geronimo. I don't know if they're afraid of him just being the most insane servant in the game, but like, dog, he's been like garbage doo-doo butter like for the entirety of the game. Can you give him some buffs? Like, please, sir, can I have a buff? Make him at least usable, right? Like, come on, man. I don't know. We'll see if they ever like throw a buff his way, but like, dude, like it's ridiculous. Like, I believe they buffed his NP and that's all they did. Like, hold on, let me double check that, because like I think they only buffed his NP and they haven't like touched anything else. Yeah, they like buffed the, like, look at this. It didn't do anything, man. They were just like, yeah, that's all Geronimo needs. That's all he needs is a little bit of extra damage. They're like, yep, we fixed him. Look at these skills. Look how amazing they are. It's like, bro, come on, man. Give him something. Anyway, on the other end of the spectrum, you have Sanzang, who I believe is like our first, well, I mean, the supports are technically like tier 0 people as well, but like our first like true tier 0 person up here. And that's just because Sanzang pretty much does it all. Like, she is a very strong, diverse servant. Not only could she be really good for farming with her 100% battery, in fact, I used her for the Skahawk Fest over on, you know, my Twitch. If you were out there, you saw me use her for clearing some of those farming nodes because she's really good with that. Literally, if you have her there with waivers, attack and defensive skill, that's the 20% that she's lacking for her battery, or Castoria's first skill, right? And she also gives like that NP gain buff to like any arts looper if you're using them, or quick looper technically. She also gives that so they actually loop even better as well. But she's also really good as a boss killer. Again, 80% battery means that she can just spam her NP out of nowhere. It also gives her an NP damage buff, so she can do some really solid damage. She has a taunt to keep your supports alive. She has the ability to like make the entire party like debuff immune and give them NP gain. Like, she's just a very, very valuable servant to have. Like, she just does a whole lot. And I know that I might be a little more skewed on her because my Sanzang personally is NP3, but even when I had her at NP1, she was putting in the work, right? Like, she was just being a very insane servant overall. And I think she's one of those servants that just commands a lot of value because, again, you can use her for farming for those like really annoying big bungus enemies that you're going to find in some of those weird EX plus nodes. And then you can also use as a boss killer, where she provides a lot of utility to the party. In fact, I love the fact that like her charisma is giving NP gain and debuff immunity to your supports, because think about someone like, I don't know, just random Saber Alter who has like charisma, right? Who just gives attack. That doesn't really do anything for your supports 90% of the time, unless it's like Koyenskaya or, you know, Ruler Scotty, who can actually use that attack but for their own NP technically. Sanzo over here giving the NP gain is helping your supports get to their own NP so they can help her again, so it's cyclical. And then she's also giving them debuff immunity so your supports don't get shut down. So her charisma, quote unquote, is really, really strong. It actually works in those team comps as well. And again, just everything that like Sanzo is doing is just really, really strong. I definitely love this servant a lot, and I value her very, very highly. Nitocris is kind of like the AoE version of Sanzo, right? She has like over a 100% battery, so she can insta-fire her NP with any CE. She can do whatever you want, any event CE, any Black Grail, whatever you want to use. And then she has an insta-kill gimmick like on her NP that also gets buffed by her first skill. And you can actually use this to take out enemies like, say, bronze or even silver nodes if you're using, I believe it's like the overcharge of her NP, so you can use Demonic Bodhisattva to buff that. And so you can actually start really consistently killing silver enemies even if she wouldn't be able to kill them with damage, she can at least insta-kill them out. So it gives her a lot of value, especially if your account is not as strong. She's kind of like the caster version of Arash, I would kind of say. She doesn't have the same like recycling ability that Arash has, that free shift, that free plug suit basically, but I would say she kind of makes up for the fact that, again, she can kind of insta-kill a node like Arash would, and then she's got a 100 or over 100% battery, so you can use her with any CE, right? So that makes her really, really valuable. Then there's Da Vinci. So Da Vinci, I contemplated for a while if she's going to go in tier 2 or tier 3, and I think actually I'm gonna give her tier 2 still, because I like some of the stuff that she's doing. I mean, the Pierce invincibility and like the damage she's able to do. Where are you, Da Vinci? Like the stuff that she's able to do is like really strong. I don't like stuff like that. I don't like the chance-based stuff, but like, I don't know, like this is all like really good, but the thing that hurts her the most is this like one hit on her NP, right? It basically fundamentally means that as an AoE art servant, she's gonna have a harder time refunding her ability because she's not gonna get any overkill. But at the same time, I can't overlook the fact that like as a servant, she pierces everything, right? Like she pierces defense, pierces invincibility, has a 50% battery, has like survivability, and then like this is 85%, so it's might as well almost be guaranteed. Although again, I play, you know, like competitive Pokemon like on Showdown and stuff, and if it's not 100%, it might as well be 0%. So I also have that, you know, going back and forth. But like debuff immunity, the healing, the NP gauge aside from this as well just means that it kind of makes up for it. But see, even then it's like, I don't know, dog. Like, I don't know if I could do higher than tier 2. They help her out a little bit because this buff right here gives her like an arts buff to the entire party. And so like that's really good. It gives her like a little bit of team utility. Again, if you're pairing her with like Castoria, that arts buff is, you know, the damage part that it's giving to the arts cards is not as important for Castoria, but it makes Castoria's arts cards even better by buffing the NP gain of them. So it makes her get to her own NP even easier, right? So it's kind of like an NP gain buff to Castoria's if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, like I really contemplated on it like really long and hard, but I was like, it has to be like, she has to be like in tier 2. Like I can't give her 1.5, but I think she's like a really strong, like high-end tier 2 type character. Like you could definitely get some value out of this servant. It's just so unfortunate that they gave her one hit on this, but I'm kind of hoping that sometime in the future they'll go back and maybe retroactively buff some of these servants' hits. Like, dude, if you give her like 3 hits, she just becomes like way more insane. She becomes like so good overnight, but yeah, unfortunately, we don't got stuff like that. Summer Marie is just really not worth using. I mean, yeah, like there's not really much else to say with her. Like she's just not really doing anything. She's kind of like a mid servant overall. And I mean, originally I spent like, I think like 7 minutes talking about her, and I just don't want to do the bit again. She's just not good. Like you're better off just using literally anybody else, except maybe other don't tier characters. Ilya right now is not as good as Sanzo, I would say. Like she does really good damage, and Ilya's got good stuff going for her, but she's going to get a buff, I believe, later this year. I believe that's when we should be getting the Prisma Ilya event that JP got. should be this year, she should be getting a 50% battery. And then at that point, it's just going to be like, do you want to use Sansa or do you want to use Ilya, right? Like, do you want to do more damage or do you want kind of like the party stuff that Sansa is going to be bringing to the party as well? At that point, it's just like, just choose who you want to use. Because then Ilya's also just got like a lot of other good stuff going for her as well. From like invincibility and like it's like weird like NP over every turn and stuff like that. She has like a weird, I believe she lowers, I don't remember if it's attack and defense or if it's just her attack on her NP. Let me actually check. Oop, I opened the wrong thing. I believe it's attack and defense that she lowers or something like that. Yeah, like she lowers her attack and defense every time she fires her NP. It's really weird. I don't know why they, well, I know why they did it because it's like, oh, she's like overworking her magical circuits and whatnot. But I'm like, bro, stop giving them these weird demerits. Like, it usually doesn't end up mattering, but I figured I should mention it because I feel like someone's going to be like, well, she's got the attack down thing. And it's like, bro, she does so much damage that doesn't really matter. You barely feel it anyway, but yeah. So then there's CasGil. CasGil, it's hard for me to rank. Like, I really want to put him in tier 2, but it's hard for me to do that because of how good this guy actually is if you do decide to bring him. Like, again, it can be really hard for some people to see him being, like, really decent because of how good the other supports are. But keep in mind that, like, his NP is functionally a star bomb. He gives everybody crit damage. He gives everybody defense. He gives everybody attack. He gives everybody an arts buff. He's kind of just like a baby Waver without the NP, right? In fact, he pretty much gives like the same stuff, right? Like Waver gives attack, he gives attack. Waver gives defense, he gives defense. Waver gives crit damage to one person, he gives it to the entire party, although his is 30%, I believe. But then instead of giving 50% NP, he gives like 50 stars. He just bombs stars all over the place, right? So he could be like really insane for that. It's just, unfortunately, NP is a little more valuable than, you know, dropping the stars. But hey, he's still really good. If you want to take a spin on like using like a Castoria CasGil team, it's a lot of fun, right? You just have like so many crit stars like bombing all over the place. It's really, really fun. I definitely recommend giving it a shot. It could be a fun thing to use. Dude, Solomon, this guy's broken. I know he's not out yet, but I threw him on here as copium for being like, dude, he's going to be the next anniversary servant. Dude, Cope, he's definitely going to be that guy. Hopefully he is. And I mean, I don't really care if he's a support or like a DPS guy. I do not care. I don't care what he does. I'll probably be summoning for him because I think Solomon is sick. All right. Then we have Scheherazade and actually, I'm going to group you guys together because you guys kind of do the same thing. These two are also kind of hard for me to put somewhere. And I think like originally I had them up in 1.5. I think I'm actually going to knock them down here just because after like I thought about it in between these recording sessions, yeah, you can use them for looping, and yeah, like Anastasia's got that 50% battery, but she has like lower hits and like her NP gains like not quite as like good. Like it's like you can loop with her, but it's one of those ones that you kind of struggle with doing. Scheherazade, similar thing. And they both have like nice little like gimmicks going for them. Like her like frigid charisma is kind of neat. It's like, ooh, I get an attack buff and I lower the enemy's attack. So we get stronger and they get weaker. It's like stuff like that's kind of cool. Scheherazade has like the guts meme and she's got like the anti-king stuff kind of going for her. Although like anti-king's a little niche, but still like good when you do run into it. Right, like you run into like, well, I was gonna say Iskander on the third wave, but I was like, well, Iskander's a rider, so I don't think that'd really do her much good. But you guys get what I'm saying. But I kind of dropped them down because it's like they're not really doing anything like super exceptional. Like tier 2 are like those servants that I'm like, yeah, you could break them out and you could see some success in using them, and like they're good enough. It's just they're not like super cracked or broken and everything or anything. And I kind of think they all kind of occupy that spot, right? I think these servants kind of go to show that it's like 50% battery doesn't just mean you're immediately going to be like just dummy broken, like right off the bat or anything. So I think they're all just very, very solid. And they're all kind of doing different things, right? Like Da Vinci's kind of just being like a gungliest, bungliest basic, well, not basic servant, but doing a lot of good basic things, right? Like 50% battery, good. Pierce invincibility, pierce defense, good. The fact that she has like good survivability is good, right? Like the guts, debuff immunity, and the heal. Like that's just all like good survivability. Like she's just doing a bunch of like really, really good stuff. I just also like maybe, I don't know, maybe someone could just say I overrate supports and stuff like that. But it's like supports are just like so good because they can just let you thrash like boss bags, right? And they can take like really bad servants and make them look really insane. So it's like I kind of see them as like cursory supports like these guys. And so I don't know, maybe I overvalue them a little bit, but yeah, I think they're pretty, I think they're really good, right? Um, Nero Caster. This one's really hard to rate because I don't know if I rate her with Koyenskaya in mind because she's not out yet, but she's still really good. Because I'm supposed to just be rating them as of like 2022. So I guess that would just be like the little cherry on top for the future. But even now, Nero Caster is really, really good. You know what? I guess I will put her in like 1.5 before Koyenskaya comes out. But once Koyenskaya comes out, she's just like immediately just skyrockets in value. Because she's got the 50% battery. She's got like the guts to keep her alive. She has a huge attack buff. Like her NP, I believe the NP gives, it's like a buster or it's an NP damage buff, but regardless, like she's able to get like those different buff types and everything to do some good damage. And even if she didn't, right, like Koyenskaya gives her everything else that she's going to need. And Nero Caster is kind of like your Ishtar or your Lancer Artoria, but for casters, basically, right? That's kind of what she is, because she's just like .jpeg good AoE buster caster with a 50% battery. Like that's kind of like the selling point for her. Like right now, she's just strong, but then when Koyenskaya comes out, she's like nutty, you know? Then, okay, I'm gonna put Circe and Medea here. So I spent like quite a while kind of talking about them versus Sanzo in the like original recording I did. And basically it came down to like, I just think that, yeah, well, they have the over 100% battery and it's really strong. Let's call her Koyenskaya. Sanzo just does a lot more for the party and has more applicability, like being able to actually do damage, being really strong in boss fights, being really solid as a farmer, as opposed to like Medea really suffering from how they messed up her NP. She's still like good, and there actually are some nodes. I believe there's like a farming node not earlier on, but a couple of months ago on the NA version that you would use Medea for, right? Like you try to like loop her NP for like the first two nodes because it was like a 113 node or something like that. And so you would use her for that. And like, so she can kind of get away with it, but you kind of had to have Castoria because they messed up like the NP, like, and they made her NP just like really weak for some reason. But still, having the over 100% NP is good. The fact that her NP has a good effect of removing the enemy's effects is really strong. Circe's kind of the same thing, except she's Buster, and instead of like removing the buffs, she like turns people into pigs. So like it's kind of like a stun. And so I kind of just see her as like Sanzo, just not quite as good, because, you know, Sanzo having the 80% battery, it's like, yeah, okay, I get it's not a free 100%, like where you can use her with any CE technically, but at the same time, you got to remember that you're going to be using one of these two over here. And like, if he pops his two skills, which you're going to use anyway for your entire node, you know, she's going to be able to farm anyway. So functionally with like these guys and how you use them in farming nodes and such, it might as well say it's 100% battery. So I was like, all right, like I'll give it to Sanzo and I'll put them down here. Shiba actually, I was being really nice originally. Actually, and same thing for Avicebron. I was being really nice to them originally, putting them up in this tier 2 thing. But I was like, you know, if someone like Da Vinci really just kind of does a little bit of everything and she's going to be kind of sitting down here, then they definitely can't be up there. I mean, Avicebron's like really cool. He's got like an 80% battery, gives himself the Buster and the Arts buff, has the on-death effect of giving shields to people. Really solid, like really strong guy. But the problem is that like you can't really use him with Koyenskaya when that comes, or when she comes out, because of his NP battery skill just being on too long of a cooldown. And so then it's just kind of like he's like a new player's like wave clearer, right? Like just clearing for one of their waves. So again, that's why he's not in Don't, because he has value at least for that. But he's going to be one of those servants that as soon as you start getting like any other setup going, you're going to replace him, right? And then like Shiba, I feel is like kind of the same thing. Like you can use her. She's got like the attack, or not the attack, but the Buster and the Arts buff, right? To let her do some really solid Buster crits with her crit buff, I guess, as well. The Arts buff is going to help her like refund on things, but she's not really like doing anything special or unique or really like filling a really good spot. She's kind of just like a decent DPS servant, but I think she's at least like doing the job better than these bunguses down here, so I'm willing to give her tier 3. I mean, Avicebron definitely earns it a bit more than she does, because at least like you can still use him for some things, because an 80% battery is really strong. You can still bring him to some quests, and like get some value out of that on-death buff of him giving the invincibility to the allies. He can at least do a little bit of damage, right? He doesn't hit super hard, but he can do good enough damage, right? It's like a free 3-star servant, right? So like, yeah, but I don't see them any higher than that. Sieg, on the other hand, is just broken. It's funny how we go from like, okay, this guy's like, he's an AoE caster and he's getting the job done, kind of. And then look at Sieg and it's like, bro, Sieg nutty, bro. Sieg is just like your de facto arts looping caster, right? Like that's also why I was like, bro, how are you guys getting beat up by a free-to-play dude? He doesn't even have a battery, bro. Like, the man just has NP gain. Then again, batteries don't really matter as much for art servants because Castorias get them to 100% anyway. And then the art servants usually just refund at least 100% of their NP as they're farming. But come on, bro, you ain't even got a battery and you're losing to this guy. It's just, he does like really good damage as a free NP5. He's got the NP gain, and then you just pop that arts buff on the last node for bigger damage, and bada boom, bada bing, he's cooking. I'm also just noticing right now that the little thing on his hand looks like a fairy tale logo. It's really weird. But yeah, anyway, moving on. Shuten Caster, like, I guess if Shiba's here, like, Shuten Caster's, like, technically a bit better. Like, they're like, dude, they're the same person, except she's a free NP5. So, congratulations, Shuten Caster. You get to be in tier 3. Miyu, I don't want to put Miyu in don't. Because if you look at Miyu's kit, like, okay, like I've said this a few times, but if you look at Miyu's kit and they just start making these more like targetable effects, she'll be really dummy broken. Like, imagine if she's like, yeah, she can give somebody this 30% arts buff and then just remove the 3 attacks, make it 30% crit damage for 3 attacks. You make that targetable, a little nutty. She can give somebody the guts and the debuff immunity, nutty broken, because she's giving survivability now. And then this is already targetable, but then she's also then doing this on top of these other things. She becomes really good. At the very least right now, it's like she's kind of like a crit kind of servant, I guess. Like, she kind of wants, I don't know what she wants to be, because I was going to say, oh, she wants to be like Art Super Orion, but I was like, she doesn't really want to be that, like, because she's not doing the insane crits. I don't know, she's like a sustain arts crit servant kind of dude. I don't know, she's really weird. Like, she's a weird servant. I feel like at the bare minimum, you gotta like NP5 the servant, so you can start offsetting the damage you're doing to herself. At least they buffed it in the future and it got a little bit better because they took off the what's it called, the demerit, and then they also were like, hey, if me was a support, she'd be a lot better. And they're like, oh, let's remove this dummy like bad effect right here and then make her a healer and give her the attack. Oh, I realized that I highlighted the attack when I said make her a healer, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? In the future, she'll kind of hold this tier 3 spot a little bit better, but I still don't think that she's so bad that she should be in don't, right? As opposed to like, okay, and let me, you know, it'll probably help if I grab some of the other like stinkers like Giles and this guy. It's like she's at least kind of doing something as opposed to these guys, right? Like, you can at least use Miyu and get something done, right? As opposed to these bungus guys that are just doing squat. Actually, speaking of, since we're just kind of down here in the middle, Chen Dingle Nuts, that boy tier 0, that boy's broken. He's one of the funniest servants to use in the game, because it's like, Sieg's like, I'm so good, I'll just loop everything. Chen Gong's like, yeah, I'll loop like 30% of my NP, and then I'll just bring in like Waver, and he'll just give me 50%, and then I'll destroy him, and then, you know what? Screw it, I'm gonna bring in Scotty, and I'm just gonna use her for the battery. Like, I don't care that I can't use the quick buff, I can use the defensive down, and I can also use the 50% battery, and that's it. The dude does insane damage, especially because he's a free NP5, but he's also got like that Arash like just free bonus damage effect, and then he just cycles your buffers, right? And then on top of that, he's baby Merlin for berserkers, right? Like, he's just good, he's just great. Hans is really good as well. Hans is like kind of always gonna hold that free-to-play guy's support type servant, right? Even more so than like Helena. And I think the distinguishing thing between them is that because Helena's also kind of like the broke boy support type servant, but Hans actually has a support NP, and the guy is just like solid. Like, you could still, I mean, you could use him still now and get some effect out of him, right? I even break him out occasionally if I want to have some fun, because he can charge his NP really quickly, start giving attack buffs, start giving the stars, give some good crit damage, you know, give some defense, some HP, just kind of generic good stuff that anybody wants to use. Yeah, there's a little bit of like a chance-based thing in there, but you can mitigate that with buff success rate and stuff if you really are like getting screwed over by it that bad. I don't think I really need to justify Hans being in tier 0. Like, I think everybody kind of understands that this guy's really broken. Like, he's really good. Even now, it's just, yeah, unfortunately, the other supports are like, Yeah, that 50% battery you give to yourself, yeah, I give that to the party. Like, I give that to everybody, as in, like, you know, Castoria or, like, Scotty being like, I just dumped that on somebody. And Hans is like, you just wait. In the future, I'll get the ability to give people NP. And when he does that, we might see the Hans resurgence. But, yeah. Speaking of, I guess I'll throw Paracelsus. Well, I guess this is... I did it again. I said them backwards. I said Paracelsus as I was grabbing Asclepius over here. Oh, my goodness. You know, I'll just... They're hanging out there. They both basically function the same way. Like, they're like really good like looping support guys. Asclepius is kind of like these two done right. Like, you know how I was saying that I want them to do more? That's what Asclepius is doing. You know, he's not only like filling that healing niche, but then you can also use him as like a farmer like support niche. Like, if you don't have your other Scotty, like before Castoria came out, you could use him in those setups, and you can use him even now for like art setups if you don't have the Castoria. Same thing for Asclepius. Giving the NP gain, giving the arts buff is good enough. He could be like your wave 1 clear, although sometimes it's a little sussy. That's why he's known as the Paracelsus, because sometimes he doesn't clear that wave 1. Sometimes it's like, that guy lived with 15k HP. Paracelsus, what are you doing? My brother in Christ, you're supposed to destroy them. But Asclepius is kind of doing the same thing, giving the NP gain, giving the battery, just not giving the arts buff. So that's kind of how they distinguish themselves, I guess. As more of a support NP as opposed to Paracelsus being able to be like a wave 1 clear if your box is kind of struggling. But yeah, I just think they're both really solid. Again, I don't think people are really going to disagree with these two being up here as well. Murasaki, I kind of consider as like the more reformed version of these two, because she's kind of doing everything they're doing, just better. Like, you can use her for farming. Her damage mod of demonic is really good. Plus, she can like give a little bit of that to the party. Her, like, I guess, do you consider that like the defensive skill, her charisma? Is that what you should consider that? I don't know. Her charisma is really good. Her damage is solid enough. Like, she's just them, but a little bit better. Like, she's like, I don't have the 50% battery, but it don't matter, right? Like, I'm still able to cook, and I'm still able to like do really, really good work. So yeah, I don't think there's much explanation for that. It's like, go figure. Like, the servant that comes out later is better than this guy that came out like a year after her, right? Or before her, my bad. I'm just getting everything backward today. Anyway, look, these two, I'm giving them the niche status, okay? They're getting that niche status. This guy, Shakespeare, is just a Paracelsus, but a bit worse. Because, like, he can technically be your wave 1 clear. He just doesn't have, like, the 120% battery that Paracelsus has for himself. He gives 20% to somebody, and he can give him a buster buff. He can do something. If you're really desperate, you can break out the Shakespeare. I feel like honestly, you could probably bump him down to don't, but I think he at least has somewhat of a niche that you could argue that he should be down here. Like, he's still a little usable, I suppose. And at least Mozart has a really good niche of, like, you slap poster girl on him, and then you bomb like 50 stars onto the board, and then you just hope that he gets destroyed. And you also hope you don't open up with all 5 of his cards or something. But that's pretty much all he does. He bombs 50 stars, which is really insane. And then he gives everybody like the arts buff, and then he dips, right? He's just like, you know, there you go. Have the stars, crit them all. Here, have a little bit of an arts buff. I'm out. I'm outy spouty, dude. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. They're just kind of funny because they got that little niche. Yugioh Caster, I don't believe has gotten either of his buffs. He should get them around the Lost Belt stuff. Like around like Lost Belt 6. Let me double check before I look like a big dumb stupid head. Because I was like, I don't believe he has this 30% buff yet. Hold on. Maybe I'm dumb. Wait a minute. No, if this is when the Siegfried buff came out, then he definitely has it, right? Yeah, yeah, this Siegfried buff has come out. Wait a minute. Let me look at this Emiya buff. Yeah, okay, if Emiya's got his buff, he's got it. Okay, I'm being stupid. Look, this is the one consequence of playing both JP and NA. You're like, has he gotten this buff before? I don't remember. But okay, if he's got the 30% battery, he's just like this guy, but... Well, I don't want to say but better, but like, he actually has like, well... As I'm thinking about it, I'm like, is he better than Avicebron with just a 30% battery? Because he's got the triple dodge, so he's got like survivability. So instead of giving the party survivability, he's a little more selfish. He's like more of like your DPS guy. Right, like he's kind of like actually a DPS where like Avicebron wants to clear out some goons, like either like the goons that are around a boss, or he wants to clear a node and then dip, whereas Yugioh wants to stay around. I think here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to say that, like, once Ku gets this, for people that don't know, the 80% battery and the man goes, like, Kaioken times 10. I'm going to say once he gets that, spoiler alert for, you know, Lost Belt 6, I'm going to say once he gets that, he could be up here, but until then, he's competing with the Avicebron. How about that? I feel like that's actually a bit more fair. Because I'm like, oh no, I was like, why would a 30% battery make him better than, like, this guy with a 70%? I'm just completely skewing things right now. So yeah, once he gets this... Wait, what? Oops, wrong one. Once he gets this, then I'll consider him a little bit higher. But I'm kind of thinking of, like, him on JP, where he's got stuff like this, where he's, like, really insane. And I was like, no. I was like, I gotta think about this, like, more, like, on NA right now, where he's just kind of good, right? Where he's got, like, just a bunch of just good stuff going for him, but it's nothing insane yet. Alice. I mean, Alice is just kind of like you, but an art servant, right? In AoE, I don't really think there's much distinction from her. I believe Let me look at Babbage again. Because I know Babbage, I think he got a buff on JP in, like, the last year or something. Again, see, I'm having the right at the finish line, right? I'm like, for Babbage, I'm like, did you get something? I'm trying to remember. So I believe Babbage got, was it this? No, I don't think that was it. Was it? Hold on. Part 7. I believe we already got this. This I think we already have. Yeah, because that's Shakespeare's battery buff, and that's yeah. We're definitely way past that. Is it this? Okay, yeah. No, yeah. We should have just gotten this then. Yeah. Okay, if he's got this, I have no problem actually bumping this guy up into the well. Do I consider him, like, do I consider that better than, like, what everybody here is doing? Or do I just consider him, like there? Bro, I have way too many tabs open. Because this is, like, this is definitely really strong. Like, 100% crit damage, plus, like, a 40% attack buff for 3 turns, survivability, NP gain to buff up the fact that he's got, like, low hits. So even though... they got low hits when he crits on these. It's going to be really insane because of that 91%. Yeah, Babbage is definitely, like, really good. But is he, like, a whole tier better than, like, say, what these guys are doing? Because he's kind of just, like... I don't know. I don't think he's a whole tier better. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think he's a whole tier better. Babbage is one of those ones that, like... I knew when I was going to get to him, it was going to kind of depend, like, it was going to be coming down to this. But I don't know. Yeah, I think I like him as much as these guys. I think it'll kind of be like, he'll get his buff and he'll rise, like, up in the tier 2. Like, at the end of the year, I'm expecting him to be up here. But I'm like, it's like, yeah, I think I'm kind of fine with that. Okay, I'll link the tier list maker in the description down below as per usual. It'll be the pinned comment. But yeah, that's going to be my tier list for the casters for 2022. I will catch you guys in the next video. If nothing insane gets dropped or anything, I'll just move on to the assassin one, and that'll be a whole lot of fun because, as you guys know, I don't really think most of the assassins are, like, super great. So it's going to be like weeding through a lot of guys that I don't think are super spectacular. But I think this looks kind of fine, maybe, unless you think that I'm, like, overrating supports or something like that. Maybe you think that Da Vinci's a little bit better. I think tier 2. I think they're kind of like good tier 2, like, gatekeepers to kind of, like, distinguish people. But, you know, you guys can let me know in the comments down below. I'm sure I'll get those comments where people are like, no, ZTL, you are a big stupid dum-dum. This guy belongs up here because look at that final ascension. So I don't know. Let me know. Let me know why you think Gildoray should be in the tier 0 category up there. I don't know. With all that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace, late.